Good in the morning.
Saturday breakfast with Pineapple Valley Golf Club.
Hello, this is Richard. Huahin hero Adam Clark recently visited some of the flooded villages close to ChaingRai. He joined me on the show and I asked him why did he make the trip.
Nothing was planned. In fact, I was with Lee and Surf with the other Huahin heroes only last Wednesday, and I think I was not complaining, but I was talking about how hectic we are and how busy we are with plans for the Huahin heroes, and it was only the following day that I saw the flooding in the north of Thailand, but then I saw how severe it was. Turned around to my wife and said, I'm getting on a plane this evening. Luckily, I have a very supportive wife, so I'd like to thank her.
But really, I mean, we've all seen the floods and we've all seen the news.
Yes.
And I'm thinking, well, it's so big, how can you make a difference?
Yeah, good question. For me, I volunteered with the Red Cross during the 2011 flood relief, and what I realised there is even one extra set of hands makes a huge difference. So for me, just getting there on the ground, seeing if I can lend a hand, but also seeing how we can engage the Huahin Heroes supporters and communities down here to possibly help up there.
Well, tell me a little bit more about your trip. What did you actually do up there?
Yes, so I'll be honest with you, Richard, I had absolutely no plan whatsoever. I jumped on a plane. I knew that the area would be full of great people, great volunteers, great foundations, and that's exactly what it was. As soon as I landed, I was picked up from the airport by a pastor, lovely guy, Krungsri. He has a children's home.
And was the flooding really apparent as soon as you arrived?
That was the strange thing. In the centre of ChaingRai, you could see there'd been a flood, but it wasn't devastating. But of course, the authorities will always sort of focus and improve the centre and then work their way out, which is completely logical. But we travelled to the hardest hit, and shall I say the poorer communities, where still now 17 days later, they're either underwater, no electric, no water. It's a disaster.
Yeah. So what did you actually do?
Yeah, the first thing we did, I wanted to assess the volunteers and what equipment they had. They were doing a great job, but they were ill-equipped. They were trying to clean houses of mud with brooms and hose pipes. So the first thing I did with the little bit of money that we managed to raise in 24 hours, first of all, I would like to thank my friends and neighbours, because I just reached out to them and we managed to raise a reasonable amount of money. So the first thing we were able to do is equip those volunteers, pressure washers, pumps, and then we started identifying the most vulnerable households. So these were, should we say, pensioners living on their own, disabled individuals, and what we would do, we would go in, clear the house of all the ruined belongings, and when I say belongings, it was everything. There was nothing salvageable in these houses. We would then pressure washer all of the houses, all of the rooms. We would purchase a new mattress, new bedding, a rice cooker, and usually a house pump. Because that was always submerged, so it would burn out. So we'd make sure they had a place to sleep that was clean, and they would have running water. Electricity we didn't get involved in unless it was not dangerous to do so.
Yeah, of course. Obviously, you were only there for a very short time. How long were you there?
I was there for 4 days.
4 days?
Yes.
Well, that's a lot of work you can do in that time.
Yeah, absolutely. But there's a lot of work to do. So, yeah, I honestly felt like we didn't even scratch the surface. And I think a good example of that is I got to the airport for my flight back with 46 minutes before the flight took off. And I was allowed 45 minutes because we just tried to squeeze so much into every second.
If we heard the phone call a little earlier from Jonky, he was saying there are community groups trying to help each other. Did you find that as well?
Yeah, absolutely. For me, that was one of the most moving things I saw during the 2011 floods, and it was repeated again in the north of Thailand last week. Yes, there are foundations there. There are groups of students. There are groups of every type of background you can think of, young, old. But what always staggers me is you'll have somebody who's lost absolutely everything. We'll help them clean their house. We'll go on to the next house. You'll turn over your shoulder and it will be the gentleman or the lady whose house you just helped. So, even though their house is in a complete state of disarray, okay, we've improved it slightly, but then they're straight on to help their neighbour.
I know that you're interested in getting locals here involved. How would you like to do that?
So as soon as I landed back here in Huahin, I was already planning my return trip. But whilst down here, I do want to try and rally up volunteers, but also donations. All of the volunteers that I've met, including the group that's going to fly back up there on the 9th of October, we all pay our own way. So we all pay our own flights, hotels. So any donations that we've already received, if somebody donates, for example, 2,000 baht, the whole 2,000 baht is spent on the people in ChaingRai.
Fantastic. And you're actually asking people to see if they'd like to go up there with you, is that right?
Yes, absolutely. For me, any type of help is warmly welcomed. So volunteers is hugely appreciated. So far we've got 4 or 5 volunteers for our return trip, which again will be on the 9th of October through to the 13th. There's 1 or 2 volunteers that can only do half of that time, but any amount of time up there as a volunteer is greatly appreciated. And I guess the second half of it is donations. In order for us to be able to continue purchasing bedding and mattresses and baby mattresses. We need that support.
And did you link up with a local foundation up there?
We now have an official foundation account that people can confidently and securely transfer to.
Was there one other point you wanted to mention?
Yes, there was one other point. We're very fortunate where we've got some huge support from local businesses already. So there's a few restaurants which have signed up to a flood relief program, which is 1 feeds 2. And what that simply means, if you dine in these restaurants between now and the 14th of October, these restaurants will donate for every meal and drink purchased, a meal and drink to flood victims in the north. So
amazing.
Just a quick thank you to the restaurants. That's Kun Peter at Daddy Deli, who's always keen to support charity, so thank you, Peter.
Great.
It's Kun Gao and Andreas from Trattoria by Andreas, next to Cicada Market. They've agreed into the programme. And it's also my own restaurant, The Lodge, restaurant in Hinlek 5. So 3 restaurants. If you're going to dine out in the next 2 weeks, go to those restaurants because they will donate a meal and drink for every meal and drink purchased.
Adam, thank you so much for coming in today.
Thank you for having me.